like that. We will be gathering the any questions to do at a later point at the end, and any significant, lots of questions, we can do a response, an FAQ or something later on. All right. So welcome to the first Head Teachers Forum for Safeguarding for this year, September. Hope you're all okay. And I know some schools have had, as always, a tricky start to the year. And with the RAC concrete and various other things that are going on, I know there's lots of challenges, always are. We hope to share with you quickly some updates for September, and kind of lay the stall out really for safeguarding what we're going to be doing in the year ahead. And so we'll move on. We've got guests today. Our main theme is on attendance, and but we're also going to touch on Prevent as well, and a number of other subjects. So welcome to our visiting speakers. We've got just a quick mention of the team there. So you can see Sally on the screen. So Sally's part of our education safeguarding team. We've also got Heidi, who can't be with us today, Johanna for Lost at School, and myself and Sophie, who you can see as well. Sally mentioned there, who's our head teacher coach working with rapid reviews and safeguarding reviews, and she's been out supporting schools today on this very day with that process. And then we've got kind of associate member Dawn Parsons, who works as the education lead in the front door. Isn't technically part of our team, but we work very closely with her. So we've just tidied up that sort of little idea to give you that slide to give you an idea of who's who, and for you to sort of recognise people and know who we are. We'll move on to the next one, please, Sophie. Thanks. Okay, so just a sort of reminder, really, you've got all of those contact details there for early help, and we're going to encourage you during this meeting to look at the universal help and the locality teams and all of the different people. There are a multitude of different people that can support you, and one of our aims this year is to try and direct you to the most suitable people for that particular task. And so, linking up with attendance, we'll be linking up with lots of other people, and trying to build up. What I'm trying to encourage is, imagine when I was a head teacher, sat at the desk, I had a pin board in front of my desk, and it had all the useful phone numbers and post-its of everybody that I needed to talk to about different tricky subjects. And that's kind of mentally what we're trying to do, is to give you some actual things to stick on your notice board with phone numbers, but actually some practical guides as well. So we're trying to encourage you to use all of the locality teams to avoid it ending up as safeguarding reviews and to everything in between. Okay, next slide, please. I don't know whether that's it. So we're going to welcome Marina Kitchen to say hello. Welcome, Marina.
Thanks, Carl. Hi, everyone. I think most people in the room know me. Head of Service for Early Help and Targeted Support. Have been around for what feels like a million years. But if we've got any new heads in the room, you're very, very welcome. And I'm sure that we'll meet up very soon. Okay, Carl.
Fabulous, thank you. I was just searching for the mic button. Thank you very much, Marina. Nice to see you, and good for everybody to know. I think I think we've got 27 maybe new heads this year, and it's difficult to sort of find the balance of trying to for people to know who's who and be familiar with everybody and try and put names and faces together and work out hierarchy. So it's good to just have you there, and we'll come back to you in a little while. Lots of resources on early help pathways available on the Warwickshire Children and Families page, loads and loads of documents, and so please do visit the website and ensure you've got the latest documents, and the link is there for you. So I think, just bear in mind that as you go through all of these processes over time, documents change all the time, and they become outdated. So it's good to download stuff, but it's also really good to get into the habit of going to websites, because that should be the latest document. Okay, we'll move on, Sophie, if that's okay. Thank you. I don't know whether I think Heidi was hoping that Marina would talk about this, but I'm happy to do so if you want, Marina, or for yourself, really, to talk about the background of early help for a moment. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm going to be really brief on here, because I know you've got a really packed agenda. But in terms of the early help pathway to change plans. Over the last 4 years, we've completely redesigned what early help looks like, and appropriately, our early help numbers have increased, which has meant that we have prevented issues, going into the front door. We have seen a decrease in the inappropriate calls going into the front door. And when I say inappropriate, that's not casting aspersions on anyone. It was the fact that we hadn't got the right infrastructure in early help. So we have done a great deal of work, which means now we've got effectively 2,000 less calls going into the front door than we had 4 years ago, which is really positive, because we know that the right children are going to the right place at the right time. And that was supported by our Ofsted visit in 2021. Happy to take any questions on that later, but I'll leave that there for now, Carl. But if there are any heads who aren't familiar with the history of early help and the redesign, I'm more than happy to have a conversation.
Okay, it'll be a recurring theme, obviously, over the year, but just really, it's all about trying to vet the best resources, the best people at the right time to you guys. Yeah. And obviously, the more the people in front door are dealing with that aren't quite hitting the target, they're using up all that precious time on the wrong cases, the wrong families, when they should be trying to work with them, the ones that are directly the most appropriate for them to work with. But let's move on to the next slide. Thank you for that. And we're now going to hand over to our next guest, Andy, who's the delivery lead for attendance, children missing in education, and elective home education. Welcome, Andy. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. I think me being here is quite important in terms of we've very much got a joint kind of future together. Certainly the new attendance offer from working together to improve school attendance is meant to be built, and it is in Warwickshire, built on a good quality early help offer. Now, I've got a few slides to kind of do some updates, but what I also want, I'm hoping that at some point Marina might chip in with a few bits and pieces as we're developing a double act. I'm hoping. What I wanted to do first was give you an update on what the attendance service offers. So what we have to do is provide some core functions free of charge to all schools. I've got some slides later on about the first 2 points, and we've obviously got the multidisciplinary support for families. I mean, that starts with early help, but it also covers a full range of other organisations. I mean, a great example, and the example I love is the housing officer who kind of prioritises a case in order to get the child to an area where they can actually access their education. So we're looking as broadly as we can, and it's developing over time. There is still the requirement for the attendance service to undertake legal intervention. This is clearly at the latter stage of a child's journey. If there's a lack of parental engagement or a lack of progress in the case, what the DFE wants us to do, and what we will be doing, is enhancing our use of what is known as formalised support. So that's where voluntary support has not been successful or engaged with. Formalised support can include parenting orders and education supervision orders. So it's another kind of tier of intervention prior to any kind of court or prosecution, should I say, really, which we know in essence probably isn't going to fix too many things if a young person has a challenging home life and the families are struggling. But there is a definite place for legal measure where appropriate. So we currently have 10. Oops. Can we go back one slide? Sorry, we currently have 10 full-time education casework officers in post. So they will be allocated, or are being allocated, between all schools. So we're talking about 1 per 24, 25 schools. And I wanted to put this paragraph 78 of working together in, because I think it's a critical change that kind of outlines how we're moving forward. And it says, rather than holding a significant number of cases, the school attendance support team should support and advise the family's lead practitioner on any attendance related elements of the plan, be part of the team around the family if necessary, and step in to lead any formal support or legal intervention where required. So again, what it's kind of saying there is the barriers for children are multiple, and there are multiple agencies who are best placed to support that improvement. The attendance service has its place in that, about identifying support and about progressing where there's a lack of parental engagement, but we really need to shift the landscape on what we see it as an attendance situation. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so I said I'd cover targeting support meetings. We're seeing this as very much a positive opportunity for the school and the local authority to work together. All schools will be offered one this term, and then they will be back on a termly basis from now on. Part of the process is to identify all severely absent pupils who will require some kind of plan, whether that's a school plan, a local authority plan, a joint plan, and also persistently absent pupils, and really see what support is out there and see how we can facilitate that and support the school. It is about working to support the child by working with school, local authority and other agencies. We will also be offering other support to schools where we can, such as data analysis, support with school systems, etc. That's what I now feel like I'm getting old, because I said that to somebody the other day and said it was a Brucey bonus, and some people in the room didn't know what a Brucey bonus was, and I thought, right, I'm getting to that point in life where I'm getting out of touch. And then these are very much developmental. Although we're basing our delivery on the DfE guidance, I really think this is a co-production thing, in terms of we need to be working together with feedback to ensure that we evolve these into meetings that Warwickshire schools need. So it's not a done to, it's certainly a work with process. Next slide, please. Okay, and then communications and advice is another responsibility of the attendance service and the local authority. It's quite a broad topic, so I've just done a few headlines really. So as well as the targeting support meetings, schools where can contact their named worker for the attendance service when required, where they can't fit where the attendance need sits. We will be providing updates about attendance to schools using the usual channels. That also includes the early help channels, and via the named work for the schools for any local or national developments. I think internally, I'm hoping that this will be, maybe Marina will agree and Carl will agree with this, that there's an increasing working together. I came up with this name, and again, this is me showing my age. So the Family Information Service and the Warwickshire Attendance Service now have a Teams channel, so that's quite modern. It's quite a modern thing to have. But I called it FizWaz, and again, you know, half the team understood that, half didn't. But the key point about this and about other developments like that is these are things we haven't had in the past. It provides a quick access. So the Family Information Service may receive a call, they may want some attendance advice, they'll put it into the Teams channel and we will respond as soon as we can. And so it's just looking at new ways of delivering that service across the board really.
I think, Andy, I think the word silo is something that, you know, people may it might be possible that some people out there can relate to silo working, and kind of one of our ambitions this show, challenging as it may be, is to try and eliminate silo working and to bring together collaborative approaches and working sensibly with our teammates, you know, all the different services such as yourself and Send and Inclusion and all the others, so that we're all talking the same language and we're joining up some of these families and some of the processes. And, you know, the link there with Fiz, you know, we're really aiming for that this year, aren't we?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, spot on. And I think obviously if that side of things is tied together, it's simpler for that child and that family if they're not having multiple contacts from different agencies from Warwickshire or wherever. You know, if it's that kind of having that single view of a child, really, isn't it? The golden goose kind of thing.
Andy, might I come in on that point? Actually,
please.
I think it might be a good segue. Sorry. I think what we've seen, you know, I think there's a lot of us in this call who've been around in education for a long time, or been around particularly in social care or local government for a long time. And what we're starting to see within our service is that a lot of the government guidelines and the government practice guides are actually quite joined up, more so than we've ever seen before. So when I think of the Early Help System Guide, which is released by DLUC, that has golden threads in it that links to keeping children safe in education, which links to the attendance strategy that Andy's talking about. It links to the new Working Together guidance that's been released as a draft for 2013, and all of it's tied up in the social care review that Josh McAllister's just done. So all the things that we are trying to achieve and have been for quite a while is actually now being followed up by policy. So for the first time in a long time, we're now getting sort of mandates from government to say you need to be sharing information, you need to be working together, you need to be doing whole child working, whole family working, you need to be evidencing that you're working with partners, which I think for all of us is a massive bonus actually moving forward, because it gives us the impetus to you know, to move the barriers out the way that we've had perhaps in the past that we struggled with. So I think that's also a massive positive about trying to remove those silos.
Yeah,
and very much with Sally working in her role with the Warwickshire Safeguarding Partnership and seeing the cases, the serious case reviews, and child deaths and things like that. We're all aiming to close those gaps so that those types of things don't happen, or happen much less than they have done in the past, and so that's what it's all about, isn't it, as well. Thank you, Marina. I think that's really hopefully colleagues will feel that's really helpful, that we're all trying to work towards the same goals. Back to you, Andy. Thanks.
Thank you. The other thing is about efficiency as well, and when I've put efficient there, I actually mean probably in schools time as much as anything else. What you don't want is a succession of different agencies using each other about the same pupil as well. So one of the things that we've talked about recently is looking at where we can join things up. So for example, joint clinics with early help, just with the start of a long road of looking at really how we can make things more time efficient and better quality information shared, etc. One of the things we will be doing this term is relaunching the attendance network with Stowe Valley Multi Academy Trust. One of the requirements from the DFE, they want local authorities to coordinate schools to really share their good practice, because obviously those working directly in schools know what works for them and what doesn't work for them. And so really, rather than having members of the local authority trying to talk about what they've picked up from other schools in terms of practice, it makes more sense for schools to share directly. So that'll be something we'll be doing as well. And then just as an aside, really, I suppose, we are working with the DFE attendance advisor now. These were initially rolled out to what local authorities they were concerned about, and then they made the mistake of opening up the floodgates for people who wanted them. So we jumped at that because we thought getting there early, because everyone will have one eventually, but at least it means that we can kind of share what we're doing, see what the DFE thinks about it, receive other advice and guidance from the DFE. So it was like a win-win for us, and we're currently tagged as green, which is a good thing in terms of they're happy with what we're doing and we're not causing them any concern. But I don't know. I think maybe longer term, the ones who are maybe amber or red might get a bit more advice and guidance and support, etc. So there's pros and cons, but yeah, the DFE are happy at the moment with our approach, but that'll be an ongoing thing. Next slide, please. Now I'll have to apologise in a second because I've got one of my children has just arrived, and they pay absolutely no concern about me being in meetings. It's free range to come in and do what they want, and I've written a note. So if I pass my note across, hopefully that's me done now in terms of parenting for the next half an hour or so. Okay, so just very quickly then, this is the new Bible in terms of school attendance, and it's been updated to include a toolkit for schools with communicating with parents and carers, and example letters and emails. So again, it's it's just good stuff there in terms of like what the DFE are wanting us to do and how they want us to do it. Next slide, please, because I'm looking at the clock. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'm expecting the majority have. On the first week back for us, the DFE issued a letter, and it was it was classed as mild illness and attendance, and it's work being done by a lot of the organisations relating to public health and College of Nursing, etc. The main arguments, the main things were children can, as we all know, really, children can go to school with most minor illness or ailments. If they have a temperature of 38 degrees, that's something they shouldn't come in for. But it's one of those, just a cough and a cold generally doesn't prevent a child from attending school. These are all common sense things we all know, but it helps to be able to show parents the guidance. they've encouraged schools to share the Is My Child Too Ill for School NHS website. Now, I think these slides are going to be distributed and there's a link in there. So just in case you haven't got that, and it's a quick place to put it all together. Just simple things really to guide parents. We know, and the next thing we know about symptoms of anxiety, emotionally based school avoidance is a growing area. However, all children are anxious at some point, as most adults are, and I think the key message here is getting there early. It's a normal part of growing up, and again, these are the simple things that we know, but it's good to have it from the DfE and from the medical professionals and experts around the area. And clearly, a prolonged period of absence is likely to heighten a child's anxiety about attending in the future rather than reduce it. And that's again, it's common sense, but people worry, don't they? Parents worry, and it's about having the key professional guidance.
And you think this is a result of lockdown, I assume, that people have got increased anxiety and worry of that kind of thing. We've got to kind of change the mindset a little bit, I assume.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and certainly the emotionally based school avoidance pathway that's under development will provide advice and guidance and resources and training around the absences. But it is, I think, obviously, I think COVID has had a significant impact, hasn't it, psychologically, and caused all sorts of additional issues. And hopefully we'll recover sooner rather than later. But I think we've had some families and some children having very challenging times, and that's kind of need to be accepted as part of our.
I'm hoping that we can start to build some links. One of the meetings I was in the other day was to make a link with GP surgeries, for example, and that idea of promoting, the early help message through the screens that are in doctor surgeries, but also sort of moderating that behaviour and going, are you ill, and what self-help things they can do to try and just sort of keep going, keep the child at school rather than taking them off, and also trying to get doctors to understand our aims and what we're trying to do. They don't want lots and lots of people going into their surgeries and getting signed off, do they? So it's again, it's that it's a kind of a new area trying to work with the GPs. It could make a big difference. So I'm sorry to hold you up, but thanks.
No, because I think the next slide on after that does touch on that as well, Carl. But it's really important. In fact, there you go. Oh, if only we'd transitioned the slide first. So the Royal College of General Practitioners have recently approved their 5 principles to promote school attendance. And you're right, Carl. In terms of support, I mean, I know I've been frustrated, for example, when we're working with a family and they're not engaging, and we can't find a reason, and they won't engage in any kind of support at all. And it's this child is out of school, and sometimes they've gone in and said to the GP, oh, my child's too ill to go to school, but they haven't engaged in any of those support processes. So, but it's kind of like, so it's a kind of it doesn't help sometimes when you've got that kind of approach. So I'm hoping that these 5 principles will guide the GPs in some way. They're not mind-blowing in terms of what they contain. Promote school attendance, recognise the importance of minimising times missed. Number 3, saying remind ourselves that some schools have mental health support teams. I mean, that's a great thing. But if a parent is going to a GP, maybe being directed back to the school is the best thing. But it's about having those joined up things so that the GP needs to be know the arrangements within all the local schools, for example. So there's clearly work to be done there. Encourage parents and carers to speak to school staff about worries. Again, it's right. And maybe again coming from the GP that will help, because there is this. I know that the GPs for a number of years now have been concerned about the flow of children coming to them for single-day ailments or small amounts of time off. However, the last one is good in terms of schedule routine appointments to minimise time taken off school. I think that would be a fantastic thing, because as we know, some of our pupils may have a midday appointment, and that might result in a full day off or half a day off. So removing that would be the best thing for everybody, really. Interesting that they're using 2021 for their 4.6 million school sessions interrupted, because clearly that was when we were in the midst of COVID. So I'm not sure how solid that data is, but it illustrates the point. Wonderful. I wanted to very quickly touch on the mental health as well, because it does change quite a few ways about how schools should be approaching health issues. And I've actually had challenges from parents trying to say that they've decided their child has a mental health problem, and so they're saying their child should be out of school, and they've kind of misunderstood some of the guidance, because the whole ethos of the guidance is about working together. So it's fine a parent saying that, but they need to engage with the support offered. They need to engage with the school and other agencies. If they close down and say my child wants to go to school and not speak to anybody, it's a challenge. But this new guidance is important. It applies to any pupil displaying any social, emotional, or mental health issue, rather than children with a diagnosed mental health disorder or disability or special educational needs. So it really broadens how the approach of how we look at pupils in this area. Encourages schools to identify a senior mental health lead. I mean, that's really good practice. We know that. It's a big area for young people at the moment, and so I think there's lots of resources out there for that. So that's a positive thing. Now, this is a contentious one, and I understand this. School staff must record absences as authorised where it is not possible for a pupil to attend due to illness, both physical and mental health related. The challenge here is that we know that in Warwickshire, for example, we authorise above the national average, so we're a very sympathetic and understanding set of schools. However, as a result, our attendance isn't as where it should be. So there's the balance here between challenge and support. And I suppose the point here is that if this is the reason a parent's keeping a child off or not, we need to make sure that we're getting that support there straight away to almost remove the kind of any kind of gap. And I appreciate, in terms of accessing, more specialist services, there can be a time break, but actually a lot of these things, like we said earlier, can probably be resolved quite quickly if we just get children back into their normal routine. There is no need to routinely ask for medical evidence to support recording of absence as authorised for mental health reasons. We know this is because there have been times it's very hard to obviously see a mental health, and if a child isn't there, it's very hard to understand whether that child could attend or not. I know that we've had concerns raised by medical practitioners that they can't cope with the amount of cases that are coming to them for minor ailments or for mental health, and so I think that's about kind of balancing the flow of things, really. In instances of long-term or repeated absence for the same reason, however, seeking medical evidence may be appropriate, and that is the key point. If a child's off for a day, that's one thing. An extended period of time, then we need to be seeing why that is. And I know, again, I'm not going to say grannies to suck eggs, because I'm using older terms anyway, like Brucey bonus, but I know this is not revolutionary information. And if a parent proactively seeks out a note from a GP, it does not imply a need for absence. And I think this is the other side of the coin, really. It's great if a parent is getting medical advice and support, but it doesn't mean the child shouldn't be in school. So that's kind of the key principles contained within this document that has a lot more detail within. Next slide, please. Now, I'm going to quickly, if I've got time, I realise I had till 4. I've got 2 slides, so I'm hoping I can push these through, because actually,
if you can, Andy, that'd be great. Thank you. We're at 402 at the moment, so brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, the strong safeguarding links clearly to children who are missing education, should I say. We're currently, I've currently taken over children missing education and elective home education, in terms of it's joining up with attendance, and we're having a look at what exists there, what's good practice, what we need to change, and whether there's any messaging that needs to change as well, because some of the government guidance has been is confusing, and actually sometimes we've got children mixed up in the wrong process. So if I read out these points, but I'm ending on the point that we're currently reviewing things. So if a child on your roll is not attending and their whereabouts is known, then there's likely to be a barrier to education that prevents a child from accessing their education. Now, you'll see I haven't said it's likely to be an attendance issue because we want to move away from the language of things are attendance issues. Attendance is normally a symptom of a broader problem. So we're looking at support need rather than it being an attendance issue. And a great example I've got recently is a discussion with the head that we discussed the child who wasn't attending, but we realised that should that child be in attendance every day, then we'd be looking at their behaviour issues. So actually, you know, in some ways, what's the point in focusing on that? Because the behaviour issues are actually a bigger concern. Were causing the attendance issues, and they were where we needed to focus really. And that was the case with broader support needs. But it just shows, you know, it could be easily, everything can be easily be tagged as attendance, but we need to look at the bigger picture. Okay. If your child is on your roll, not attending, and their whereabouts is unknown, they may be a child missing education. Clearly, we need to be following our children missing education procedures, which is effectively a joint process of the local authority and the school trying to establish their whereabouts. There's more to it than that in terms of once if we can't identify where they are, we then start looking at whether there's any safeguarding concerns, and we start looking at you know, other issues. But effectively, that's not an attendance issue if we can't locate where they are. That is a child missing education issue. Okay, currently, and this is where I'm kind of driving from really, the area is saying, oh, you know, we've got so much work coming in, but actually when we unpick it, a lot of their work is actually saying this isn't a CME, this is something else. And so what we need to do is look at the management of the flow of what's coming in and change it so that it's going to the right place really. So that links in with the review that we'll be doing to try and really clarify and hopefully simplify the guidance on where things should go for children who are not your regular attenders at school. Okay. Oops, sorry, there's one more. I do apologize. I did say okay, and I know that sounded like a transition request. Schools that have a named casework officer, and that will be all schools by the end of term, can contact their worker to discuss pupils if they're not sure which process they should be on. And there are no other safeguarding considerations. So it's not another safeguarding measure in terms of referring to their worker, but it can help, you know, help filter where the case should go. Thank you. Next slide. And I think this is my final one. So elective home education is recently been a massive growth area. We know obviously that that not only the experiences of children over COVID, but also the experiences of parents in terms of how it's impacted on them, but also in terms of, you know, potentially having their children at home, having their education provided by the school online. I know that probably everybody will have had parents saying to them, you know, now school's open up, can I just keep my child at home whilst you send the work through, please? So I've heard lots of examples of that. So it's changed perceptions of education to a degree. But what we have had is children and parents who are struggling. So we've had an increase of over 1,000. We've gone from about 200 before COVID to 1,200. So there's a large increase there. Parents do have the right to withdraw their children for elective home education. The only exception is if they have a named school on an EHCP, then it needs to go through a different process. However, I think we'll all agree that for most children and parents, school is the best education provider, and that's where we want children to be. I've had a look at the reasons for withdrawal for elective home education in 22-23, and you can see there more than a quarter were due to emotional mental health issues. So that's an indicator that it would be great if we can get in there sooner before a parent feels that their only option is to remove their child from school. And I know again it's not as simple as that, but in essence it's a big factor. Quarter of the parents don't give us a reason, they don't have to. It's just it's useful to understand what's going on. 12% is cultural, lifestyle, philosophical, which you could argue is probably the reason we want children to be withdrawn from for elective home education. 10% is waiting on a waiting list or not being offered a preferred school place. So this is an area I know of discussion for education at the moment. We need to be ensuring that the admissions process is working as efficiently as it can, but there are always going to be challenges if there's not school capacity and parents are wanting their child in a particular school. So, but it is an area we're looking at the moment. 8% attendance, which is interesting because we know anecdotally that a number of when we've been working with families and we're actually going through an attendance process, sometimes they will withdraw their child for elective home education. So that's something again which hopefully under the new process will reduce. Bullying, bullying is obviously a big area that's very hard to simplify. You know, and I won't even attempt to sort of address that here, but it's interesting that is the that is 8% of the withdrawals are on that basis, and then 7% send. So it's a send, it's a broad, again, under the broad brush really, but I suppose part of that is around parents who are maybe feeling their child's needs aren't being met by the school, by the EHCP, or it's an unmet sort of send needs, and again, another big area. But I think a big point when the parents don't understand, and this is why we have had what we call a cooling down period, is that many parents, and I think COVID probably helped with this misconception, but they're not entitled to any support, educational support from the local authority. They are taking on full responsibility, and I think some parents, when they realise that, reflect and maybe look for a different approach. Thank you. That might be my last slide.
Andy, thank you. It is your last slide, I believe. Thank you very so much, Andy. We do need to move on. It's a shame because there's loads of really good stuff there I'd like to talk about. I just want to make one little point, and that is one of the things coming out of our safeguarding audit this year was having that named contact in school as well as the named contact in your locality from attendance. I think it's really important you designate someone that's got that relationship with the families, that's got that relationship with the attendance service, that can segue between early help and the head and the senior leaders, but also between the children as well, and has the oversight within your school. We've got a couple of quick questions. I don't know if we've got time to answer them. Emily has asked the 10%, Andy, are they people without a preferred place, including those going through EHCP tribunals and that type of scenario, do you think?
I would say, looking at data, I would expect it to be that, but don't forget it's a tick list for parents to tick against. So it's only as good as what the parents' perception is. But I would say probably certainly yes to or maybe the 7% is that with the EHCP tribunal.
And we've got one more question, which is, sorry, we've got one more question. Could EHE be split into primary and secondary, please, at some point? If we get that data later on, it'd be interesting to see whether there's any differences between the primary and the secondary. Got another question coming now. We might have to answer these questions afterwards when we send out the bulletin. Always another one coming. PowerPoint, yes, as always, the PowerPoint will come afterwards, and we'll put all the links in the bulletin. We've scheduled all of this stuff, so it's all coordinated. So we'll get some of these answers to you, but we'll have to move on because we've got other things to move on to. But thank you so much, Andy.
Okay, not a problem.
Or you can answer them in the chat, or I know that
brilliant.
Nikki's in the chat as well. So if you want to do that, any of you guys can answer it, but we'll try and get all of those into the emails that come out later. Thank you so much. Back to Marina. Thank you.
Thank you. Fantastic information, Andy. And for our colleagues in the room, this is just going to add and support the information that Andy's already shared. So I just wanted to start by saying that we're working together as an ecosystem, and I know you've heard me say this many times before, but we can't do this in isolation. We have to work together as an ecosystem, and we're only as good as our weakest link in lots of ways. So that's part of the silo reduction moving forward. I've just put here a few principles that the new Working Together 2023 document, which is currently in draft and under consultation by the government, have shared. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the top two are quite interesting. So the first one is a child-centred approach within a whole family focus. That's certainly coming through very strongly through supporting families, which is about, whilst we are very child-centred, we've got to be considerate of the fact the child is part of a wider family approach. So we can't be focusing just on the child when actually some of the issues are to do with the family. So this little ecosystem diagram in the middle, when we talk about other support services, that could be housing, that could be citizens advice, it could be those support services that are going to support the parent, change, grow, live, domestic abuse services that are going to support that child to get into school. And the second one, where it talks about the child's welfare is paramount, but their wishes and feelings should be sought, heard and responded to. Just a really quick anecdote here. You may or may not know that we have had some social workers located in schools, our Swiss program, social workers in schools, over the past 2 to 3 years. And when we're asking children why they're not coming to school, information has come out about that situation for the family that is not the same as perhaps when our families are telling us. Things like young carers, cost of living or domestic abuse, or things or housing, children living with SGOs, special guardianship orders, living with grandparents, and they're struggling. So we might, and I know that this is, again, as Andy said earlier, teaching grannies to suck eggs, but we've certainly found, by speaking specifically to the child, and listening to their thoughts, feelings, wishes, and understanding from their perspective why they're not coming to school, some really positive things have been able to take place to be able to maintain and increase attendance. Can you just click once more, please, Sophie? And again, and once more, thank you. So this is just to sort of show, nip back, that when we're talking about this ecosystem, it is part of a wider spectrum. Some of the information I'm about to share with you could be for schools to simply signpost, and families for themselves to access that support for themselves. But the red circle would also say, on the other end of the spectrum, that's how we work together as a team around that family, around that school, to put the support services around the child to make sure that we can eliminate the barriers for that child's attendance moving forward. Next slide, please, Sophie. The first one is around the Family Information Service. And lots of people know about the Family Information Service. We talk about FIS all the time. Andy's just talked about FISWAS, which I think is absolutely brilliant. But I just wanted to highlight here that some of the systemic issues for children not attending school, particularly if the parent have got issues with housing, money and employment, cost of living, or accessibility services such as mental health for adults, this is a service that could really help with their brokerage, that can do some direct work with that family to help remove some of those adult barriers. And they do a discovery session, which is completely free, which will take about an hour. So in your schools, if you've got pastoral people or family support workers, or your DSLs, you could book on and have a discovery session. You could book it as part of your wider consortia group, where our colleagues in Family Information Service will actually go through the web pages and show you exactly where to access services, so you can then support your families by accessing that information and that support for themselves. So we're really trying to increase our self-help and self-support and enable you to signpost, so you don't have to do the direct work, but you can tell the families where the direct work is coming from. Next slide, please, Sophie. This is where we will be delivering some of that direct work for you. And I'm not going to go through this in minutiae detail, because I'm sure lots of people are aware of it. For those people who are not aware of it, please make yourself known to Carl after today, and we'll make sure that this information is available to you. But we have our services in terms of early help split down into what we call the spectrum of support, so the stepped approach. So from Universal, where families can get access to that information, advice and guidance themselves. And you can see here that we have a list of 10 courses for parenting work, which families can get access to online for completely free. In fact, your staff in schools can access this for completely free and use it as a CPD. And just as a point of note, from 2021 to 2022, we had over 3,700 people attend these courses, these online courses. So that's sort of on one end of the spectrum where you can signpost. We have extra help, which is we're delivering this information, advice and guidance, and families can access this support with you just telling them where to get it from. They can access it directly from the FIS web pages as well, and access via Eventbrite. Again, from 2021 to 2022, we had over 620 attendances, and these courses were only delivered halfway through the year, so we haven't got this year's information yet. And just to highlight, we've also got targeted youth. So for our older age group, you can see on the Universal Help, we've got detached youth sessions. If our families, if you know in your areas that we've got children who are not coming to school, but they're hanging around in places, we've got detached youth workers that will go out to those areas and those territories and support those young people and try and work with those young people. And we also have school youth programs that are free for school that we would come in and deliver. School have got to identify the young people, but we can support that with delivery. So if you've got young people that you're thinking on the precipice of not coming to school, then we've got support there as well. In terms of the targeted support, this is where we're talking about early help pathway to change. You've got the MISS counselling, which is free. We've also got targeted youth sessions, and we've got a whole range of support sessions with our family support workers. And this is specifically helping parents as well as children. And I think, you know, people forget that the family support workers are going to do that direct work with families. It's the wider families, not just the parents themselves. But just to sort of highlight as well that we've got an assistant psychologist in our team who deliver 3 amazing courses, which again is, you know, they used to be delivered by CAMHS. We now at Rise, we've also taken on the baton of delivering some of these, so you can get quick and easy access. So we deliver Malachi, which is it's a therapeutic parenting program, but also Incredible Years and Stop, which is the primary and the secondary age. So, and they are really good for families that need extra therapeutic help to get their children back into school. And I'm talking here about that targeted level that Andy's talked about. We're also now training our staff in FLASH, families learning about self-harm. So if you've got children with mental health issues, again, that's going to be an amazing course to support our parents. And then obviously we've got our specialist support services. So you can see from those areas, there's actually quite a number of different areas here in which our families can get access from the early help team. And it isn't about schools delivering that work. It's about my staff will deliver it when you're signposting that support. Bit different when it's an early help pathway to change plan that we need to get that coordinated, you know, support around the family. But that's when we're going to have to pull that team around the child to support that family, because their needs are identified as being quite, you know, a lot higher level. I'm going to leave it at there, Carl, because I'm quite aware of the time. I apologise, that's a whistle-stop tour. I'll be on the call at the end if anyone wants to ask any more questions, and I know Andy will if you've got any concerns or want to ask anything at all. Thank you, Carl.
No, that's brilliant. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Marina. It's all well worth it, and you know, my stuff I can just race through quickly, and people can look at the slides later. That's fine. Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to our next guest. Welcome to Jeff, who is our Prevent Officer in Warwickshire. Hi, he's been waiting in the wings patiently, and okay. I've said you've only got a couple of minutes, Jeff. I'm really sorry, but at least it's nice to just see who you are and for you to tell us a little bit about the messages that you want to share. And I know we'll be inviting you back very soon, where there'll be some more information for people in schools. Thank you, Jeff.
That's fine. I'm going to go off piste, so we won't go through the slides. The slides will be available to you after the session. I've just got a couple of key messages. The Prevent Duty guidance was updated. It came out with a revised format on the 14th of September. The implementation date is the end of this year. Essentially, for school-based colleagues, it's very similar to the previous iteration of the guidance. What I would say, though, is that there's a sharper emphasis on capabilities. So reviewing the training and learning program for Prevent as part of your overall safeguarding arrangements. There is a package of training, both e-learning provision from the Home Office, local whole school and targeted training that we provide in the County Council that you can dip into, and we offer it across hate crime, hate incidents, online grooming and Prevent. But it goes beyond just training our staff, training our DSLs, training our governors to think about a risk assessment. And I just want to use the time I've got today to highlight the increased emphasis within the guidance on having a considered approach to and a proportionate approach to understanding risk of radicalisation, exposure to extremism of our young people's cohort. There is information that we can provide you to support you to undertake that risk assessment. The manner in which you do it is left to yourselves. The time at which you do it is left to yourselves. The guidance talks about integrating it within your wider safeguarding procedures. I'm looking to develop a template for that risk assessment. The reason I haven't sent it out is because there's a lot of work taking place within the DfE and the Home Office on updating Prevent frameworks currently in the light of the independent review. So please watch this space. In the link, in the final slide, I've listed a set of resources about training, about access to a strategic statement on risk in Warwickshire and the priorities for Prevent in our county. If you're doing a risk assessment, I really recommend having a look at that. It will come out along with the slides. And if you want to talk to me about training or any information that you've got regarding referrals, here's information on this slide. And I would be more than happy to assist anyone. Just give me a call, drop me an email. Always happy to pop out if that conversation helps. So
Brilliant.
I hope that's kind of focused enough, Carl. There we go.
It's a fantastic, superb, Jeff. Thank you. That is exactly what we wanted, really. Just wanted to introduce you for those people that don't know you, to remind people that you're available to do the training and to raise that profile, to also then tell them that the risk assessment's on its way, because I think somebody about 60-70% of schools knew that that was a target from their audit this year to try and get that done. So they'll be thinking, when am I going to get that? How can I do it? So we know it's on the radar for them. So that's brilliant. And then just keeping that profile going. And I think it's quite a good link as well with attendance, because we know that, some of those young people that are out of school are more predominantly at risk of radicalisation as well, with access to the internet and so on. So it fits in really well. Thanks ever so much. I really appreciate it. And you can stay on if you've got time to stay on for any questions. That would be brilliant. I've got a couple of questions in the chat. Yvette's put a question on there about, can they access Flash through early help, or can they access it without early help? So I'll hopefully Marina or somebody be able to find the answer to that one later on in the broadcast. So thank you very much, Jeff, and our visitors. 5 minutes left. It's just told me, and I've got about 20 slides to go, so I'll race super fast. Just a quick mention of KICSI, which you probably already know. You've done the training in September with your staff. You will know that the key areas of keeping children safe in education, one of our main pillars of safeguarding, along with working together, is another one that's been mentioned today. The key areas coming out of this filtering and monitoring, and strangely enough, anybody would think we organise this, it's very much about radicalisation, the use of the internet to prevent radicalisation, and that's their focus, not just exploitation and other things, but actually radicalisation is an important part of that. Children being absent from education, well, we've talked about that as well today. So 2 of the main requirements from KICSI. And then the other part, again, is linked to Prevent as well. Organisations using your school premises. So that's when you do a letting and you need to scrutinise who they are and have they been DBS checked. And, when you're doing that risk assessment, just having a think about, what are they doing in your school premises, and that you have a responsibility. Could they be promoting radicalisation? I know that may be unlikely in most cases, but just having that awareness, and that's the agenda behind that key point. And then recruitment again, and reminding everybody about the importance of safer recruitment, and also the checks that you now need to do online, background checks, as well as the DBS, to just see whether that person has a profile on the internet that's part of your statutory duty now. So you'll probably know all about that, but that's just a reminder from KICSI. Thank you. Safer employment there, slide from Heidi. We do send all the policies out and everything, but just a reminder about good practice with safer recruitment, having people trained in safer recruitment. We offer that in our team, having the head or the deputy or one of the people on the panel plus a governor that you've got trained is really good. Using the vetting processes, making the plan, trying to plan it, as I know that it's not always possible to plan, but the process of having that process set up so that you're not doing anything in a hurry, because generally those things that happen with safeguarding happen when people miss sections of that process and they do it quickly, maybe don't wait for that reference, or that something else happens where you circumvent the process and maybe you're in such a hurry that you miss something. And then managing the concerns as well, and identifying those issues, those yellow forms, and then also when people move on, making sure that we're passing on those references and we're not letting poor practice get passed on to another school and carry on in the cycle. So that's a very quick summary, but Better Hiring Toolkit there's a link at the bottom, and please do use it. And we do offer safer recruitment training as well. Next slide, please, Sophie. I hope that's done Heidi justice. There's a lot more than that. So there's a quick mention here, checks on Warwickshire County Council employees in schools. You should have got this in schools, that the letter that comes now with Warwickshire members of staff should show that they've all been DBS checked and barring checked as well, so that if you've got an educational psychologist or STS or somebody else coming out to your school that is working with children, then they should bring this with them. You shouldn't need to have lots of additional processes. This letter, along with their identity badge, should be sufficient to make you be reassured that they are safe to work in your school. That is for the people that are coming in to work with children. It's a different scenario when we're talking about gardeners and other people working on site and builders and so on. We'll come back to that another time, but this is about trying to get those EPs, those people that you need to support, early help workers, people like that, social workers coming in to work with children that need help, and to priority we get them into school, and we want to remove as many barriers as possible. And we obviously, that's important to us that they are safe to work with children as well. So just that reassurance. This has only recently been updated, so we're trying to remind all different services to make sure their staff have all got those letters with them. So please feed back to us, let us know how that's going. Okay, next slide, please. A quick mention, some of you may have missed out on the Operation Guarding. So you'll know about Operation Encompass. I'm sure everybody knows about that one, which is about when you get domestic abuse incidents happening and reported to the police, and then we alert the 2 people in school about that so they're aware of what's going on. There's also the Operation Missing from Home, which again alerts the 2 DSLs in school, a head teacher and one other, about somebody going missing and being aware of the police being aware of that. The new one now is Operation Guarding, and that one is about the police. It's all based on the same premise. It's about sort of incidences of suffering trauma as a result of self-generated indecent imagery. So people taking images and changing them, and this is often pupils doing it to other pupils. So an incident of somebody taking a photograph off the school's website and then changing it and making it unkind, or bullying somebody by changing that photo and then sharing it on social media. Those things do go on, and so this is where people have put those images out into the internet and are using that. And so when the police are involved in this process, they now have a system for reporting it to the school as long as you've signed up. So there's 162% increase in this type of activity and pornography images being shared since 2018. We'll move on to the next slide, please. Thank you, Sophie. So it works exactly the same way as Operation Encompass. The police are made aware of an indecent images being shared or sexual imagery produced by young people. It's illegal if it's to exchange nude or semi-nude imagery, and so this process then gets passed along Warwickshire Police. If they've seen this child and been involved in it, and there's a risk that's been identified and it requires investigation, they'll make the referral to Front Door, and then they'll delete the images. And then after they've done that, they'll let the school know what's going on. And the same as everything else that we say about Operation Encompass, it is not for you to take action as such, or to talk to the child or to talk to the parent. This is about your awareness and a need to know basis. So the relevant people in school that really need to know this information, they are the only people that need to know it. Maybe the DSLs, the head teacher, maybe the class teacher, if it's appropriate, but it's for you to be aware of. And if you've got other factors that see cropping up in your school, that's the time when you might need to contact Children and Families Front Door and just alert them that there's additional information that maybe has built on from this incident. I hope that's useful. Next slide, please, Sophie. Please do sign up. There's a link for you to click on. We did launch it in the summer before we broke up from schools. You get the same kind of alert there on the left-hand side of the page that comes through on your email. It has started since Monday the 4th of September. I think we've got about 60 schools so far out of 200, nearly 300. So please do sign up. There's a link there. If it's not working on the slide, excuse me, if it's not working on the slide, we'll send it out and you can click on that link And so you can sign up. It's very, very quick. It's exactly what you've done before for Operation Encompass. Next slide, please. Thank you. Hope that's useful. I'll try and check on the questions afterwards because I'm trying to just keep going at the moment. I just want to raise the profile of RSHE and the link to harmful sexual behaviours. Just encourage you all to make sure that you've got the information somewhere handy on how to manage harmful sexual behaviours. But some of you may remember that we used to have something called Spring Fever in Warwickshire about teaching young people about appropriate sexual behaviour. So there is a working group there now, and somebody from Public Health who is working on RSHE, and there's a legal requirement for us to start working on that and delivering it, supporting schools. So there's a network which is going to be available, and then Catherine Winton, I've spoken to her very recently, and she's really keen to move forward with a network in a similar way to what we have done with PSHE before. So just letting you know that that's out there. I know it's another thing to do, but we are going to have to deliver that in schools in an appropriate way. And again, it's a challenging subject, especially with different groups in schools, different cultures and things like that. So it's a difficult one to navigate, and so the more help we can get, the better. Linked to that, in just below under there, is the Brook training, which we know that there's a demand for training to make staff more confident about managing difficult situations with harmful sexual behaviours, inappropriate sexual behaviour in schools. We've got this scheduled to start after Christmas now, where all schools will be able to have somebody trained in the Brook programme. That's taken a lot of time to get set up, but it is coming very soon. And so we're going to try and link those together so that your curriculum helps young people and parents understand about appropriate sexual behaviour, but then you've also got the backup of how to manage that with your staff and how to deal with really challenging situations, which often result in complaints as well. Next slide, please. Just a quick mention on training. All of our training in terms of the education safeguarding team, you probably already know about, but you can click on those links there as well. You can contact Sophie, and we offer all of those different things, as you probably know. Many people are booking onto those courses. This is the official training that comes from Warwickshire, that we offer, and there are other providers, but ours is all tied in and dovetailed into Early Help and all of the other contacts as well, and Andy and attendance and all the other services. We also offer bespoke audits as well in school, so we can do a half-day session in your school doing whatever you want to do with safeguarding, whether it's an audit, whether it's looking at the single central record, looking at your record keeping, looking at induction, training people, training your staff, or looking at your policies, or all of it, the whole thing. So contact us if you're interested in that. We have a limited number of days we can spend doing that. It usually takes about half a day. Next one, I'm just trying to assign, no, not next slide, sorry, Sophie, just on the right hand side there, making you aware that Warwickshire Safeguarding Partnership has training as well, and they have their own website. We are not Warwickshire Safeguarding Partnership ourselves, but we work with them, and they have their own training there about trauma, about front door referrals, professional curiosity. You can see those there. About the designated officer, or the LADO. So finding out a bit more there. We've got stuff about restorative practice, which you can find out about, which is also on offer. There's the training offer for SEND, which you may or may not. So I'm trying to do what I said at the beginning, is put all of these things in one place and work towards having all of these links together, so you can say, what training can I get about SEND? What training can I get from early years? What training can I get on internet safety? And obviously we need to put Jeff on there as well, and maybe attendance, and build up a sort of jigsaw of all these different training offers that are available to you, so they're all in one place. But this is kind of a start, so I hope that's useful to you. The bit I'd say there is about the internet safety on ICTDS, and we are trying to work with them to work on how to safeguard children on the internet as well. Next slide, please. Okay, super fast. We've mentioned working together. That consultation closed. That's the other key pillar of safeguarding that has impact on lots of things that we'll be telling you about when that is published. But we've got a pretty good idea. And as you know, we've mentioned attendance already being part of that, as well as the early help process. Next slide, please. Quick mention, if you're not aware, that we have a wellbeing calendar, and this tells you about some of those events over the year which are linked to safeguarding. There are others that aren't on there. This is produced by FIS, and what we're going to do, we're going to add a couple more things onto there, such as children in need and those types of things, where you know, we often hang our curriculum or our assembly schedule around these key dates. If you go on to the next slide, please, Sophie, and you can click on those and it takes you to the websites as well. The networks, we're just mentioning those, that we've got lots of networks in Warwickshire, and the next DSL network is on the 4th Thursday of every month. So we're going to try and make that a bit more predictable for you. And then there's lots of information on CASPAR, the NSPCC stuff as well. Lots of other meetings in your localities as well. These are the dates and the themes so far, and I'm happy to take any suggestions and ideas that we maybe have missed or we want to add. We've got one at the moment where we haven't finalised that theme in March, April, but those are, we'll be inviting speakers again to talk about those different subjects, and we aim to do them just before the event. So race and equality and anti-bullying comes before Black History Month, and we include hate crime, and Jeff spoke about that last year, and then we tie in things with disability and equality and Autism Day. Internet safety is usually in February, so we talk about that in January, and so on. You get the idea. So those are the dates, and the links are the same now. For the Head Teachers Forum is the same link, just like the Head Teachers Briefing on Tuesday is the same link. The link now for all of these meetings every month will be the same, and the same for the DSL one will be the same throughout the year. Hopefully that will make it a bit easier. And then we've also got a date that I haven't put in yet, which is the Warwickshire Partnership is doing a safeguarding week on the week commencing 26th of Feb. Next slide, please. Thank you, Sophie. I've just got a blank screen. There we go. Oh, it's going to be one of those that, thank you. I'm not going to have time to talk about neglect now, but we do need to talk about the process, the sort of importance of neglect and how that ties in with early help, but we're going to have to move that on to the next session. And again, you can find out a lot of useful information through the London Grid for Learning, where there's a link at the bottom of the screen, and we will come back to that subject, I promise, but we haven't really got a lot of time today. But just trying to, we know that some of the children that go to Children and Families Front Door, we feel that are being neglected, but I think what we're trying to do here is to try and specify what you think of as neglect, and maybe giving you some scaffolding to help you understand what scale of neglect is. This may be helpful in doing that. We'll come back to it another day. We'll move on to the next slide, please, Sophie. Thank you. Again, in working together and the process of the spectrum from early help through to Children and Families Front Door, to the different stages of social worker intervention and TSOs. Again, I'd like to talk about that further, but you may not be aware of all those different teams, and quite often you may experience different social workers being attached to a child or a family. We're trying to move away from that in general terms and to have that continuous relationship with children and families. And we want to promote the TSOs, the targeted support officers, and the early help social worker, who you may not be aware of, that we've got early help social workers in each locality now. So to try and help you with some of those tricky cases where you feel like you're holding that information and you feel quite isolated and vulnerable. So those are our early help social workers that are in place now in the different areas of Warwickshire. We're still developing that. We also do have some in some individual schools as well, in secondary schools. We'll come back to that again another point, but the idea is that they are also there in your locality to support you and to use that family support worker helpline and to talk to your contacts. We'll share those contacts with you. Next slide, please. Sorry, it is a breakneck speed. I apologise that we're run over, but I've not got many left now. The MAC form, just to remind you about the MAC form when you are making a referral to the Children and Families Front Door. That's the one that exists now. You can find it on the website there, on the safeguarding website. So use the one that is most up to date, please. We do have some people still using the MAF form from like 4 years ago. So please do encourage new staff to use the right form. And just to move on to the next slide, Children and Families Front Door would just like to consult you on how those MAC forms work for you, how the Children and Families front door works for you. I know that you may have some opinions on that, so you know, this is all about trying to improve everybody's service and to get the best results for children and families. But there is a form there, Microsoft form, which is literally 1 page. They would really like your opinion. They are considering going over to a digital form, which is like a live web-based form rather than a attachment which you send. And the idea in principle is that you get updates on your the progress of your submission, in the same way that, you know, I always think that it'd be really great, like with you get an Amazon, you order something from Amazon, you know that you've ordered it, you know where it is in the supply chain, that it's been dispatched and when you like to have it delivered. And, you know, our ambition would be that, you know, from the start to finish where that progress is in your referral to the Children and Families front door. So it'd be great if we can work towards that. This is the first step in that direction, so please do respond. Next slide, please. And we're coming right to the end now. Just a reminder of our contacts, again going back to that visualization of your pin board in your room. These are some of the useful contacts. You've got Marina on there, you've got mine and our team, Sally, who's in the meeting, you've got Heidi, who does all of our training, you've got Johanna, Lost at School project lead, Sophie, as you know, and then to the left we've got Sharon Kindred, who's your contact for early years, and the other team members. We do work closely with them, but should you need to reach them, that's their contact details. Julia Kenny and Lorna McDonough from Governor Services, who can really support you when you've got, you know, challenging situations, complaints, but also with the training for governors. On the right we've got Dawn Parsons, who I mentioned earlier, who's my colleague in Children and Families front door. She's the education front door helpline lead there, the contact for Children and Families front door. And then also we've had a few referrals about allegations against members of staff already this week. So I just mentioned that the ladder is the point of contact for that. There are 2 people that share that role, Lisa and Bally. They're the people to contact, and that's the criteria that you use if you think you need to speak to them. I'm happy to give you advice generally, but usually if it's more complicated, those are the people that you'd refer it to when you have a concern about a member of staff or an allegation about a head teacher as well. So there's more guidance on that on the website. Next slide. We're nearly at the end. I think there's 2 left. So there we go. There are our contact details again. Hope that's been useful today. We've tried to pack in quite a lot. Please do give us some feedback, and I'm just going to stay on at the end. There's one more slide. If you get time to give us some feedback, we'd be grateful. And then I'm just going to check, Sophie or anyone else, have we got any questions outstanding? Thanks for joining us, everybody, that we need answering. I'll just have a quick look now and then let you go. Just having a look at any questions. Have a day.